And of course, the main area that we've been following for a number of weeks now is the Netzarim corridor. And we're calling it the Netzarim corridor because that's the name of the settlement. That's the name that the Israelis called it at the time. And so the Palestinians call it Street 10, but when it's an occupier creating a highway for their troops to access the pier, we're going to go with the name of the settler because the Palestinians didn't choose this. So the name of Netzarim corridor is what we use to follow this. The Palestinians call it street number 10 if you're looking on maps, and the Israelis, I think, call it Highway 749. And so their troops have been stationed along this corridor. That's the only place inside Gaza that they have been for the last number of weeks. And so, of course, just like anywhere in the West Bank or Gaza, wherever the IDF is present, there's resistance. And so the resistance is in Netzarim corridor. Let's look at number 7 here, Tamara, because this is a 𝐓𝐡𝐞 Brigade's Al-Ghul sniper attack on an IDF position in the Netzarim corridor. We're looking at triangles pointing at soldiers in a window. We're still seeing soldiers in a window. We're still seeing soldiers using curtains to think that moving curtains back and forth is somehow keeping them protected. And we're watching a 𝐓𝐡𝐞 sniper team in Tel El Hawa. This is south of Gaza City in the Tel El Hawa neighborhood. And there we're watching another medical evacuation, well within range, not being targeted. That's well within mortar range, well within sniper range. And again, we're not seeing the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 Brigades target medical evacuations. We can loop this one, Tamara, not targeting medical evacuations. The most obvious example of that was during the Khan Yunis ambush a month ago, when we watched on film dozens of soldiers being evacuated from that attack. And we know 𝐓𝐡𝐞 was in position because we watched the ambush, but they didn't target the medical evacuation. So that is something we have also been following throughout this war. Let's go one more time through it too, Tamara, because the Al-Ghul operations always have so many details in them to notice. The way the fighter is set up, the way the Israelis are using this position as a base. You can clearly see the soldiers there. They're obviously a little more concerned than they used to be. They don't gather on the roof and stand around and talk anymore on the roof. And also, just to also note that this is once again a video that we have edited out the hit. We edited out the hit so that we can keep these videos and these shows on the air. But that soldier was hit, and that's his medical evacuation. And that is one of 50 Al-Ghul sniper attacks that have been carried out. There was also a Saraya Al-Quds sniper attack this week east of Shuja'iyya. So we're seeing snipers, we're seeing rockets, because the forces aren't on the ground. The ground war aspect of this fight is currently on hold, and it's in the eastern edge of Rafah, just in the beginnings, just in the last 12 hours. Their IDF armor moved into the eastern, not even into the eastern, but moved forward into Gaza, and are stationed right now on the outer edge of the eastern edge of Rafah. And so this week's videos are focused on sniper attacks, rocket attacks, and these are mortar attacks. So let's look at number 8 here, Tamara. This is mortar attacks against the Netzarim corridor. These are excavators that are carrying out the operations. There's 2 operations happening on Netzarim corridor. The Israelis are attempting to build a permanent military base in that corridor. Because they're losing the war, they want to have a position inside Gaza to at least partition Gaza, because they're unable to hold territory in any other place. We're watching a heavy mortar being fired here. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 makes these mortars. They put mortars into service in 2000 at the beginning of the Second Intifada, and these mortars were used against settlements in the Gaza Strip. So the fighters are well aware of how to use these mortars to target. And so this is what these excavators that are doing this work, building the Israeli base and building the highway, as they call it, which will be a tank road down to the U.S. pier that's on the shore. So if you look at these, we've seen these vehicles be hit before in the war. I wanted to show you guys what it looked like up close. It's kind of like a Mad Max vehicle. That the Israelis, the only country in the world that needs to have these kind of engineering equipment, this up-armored engineering equipment that they use most commonly in the West Bank to destroy houses. We saw them use it in Tulkarm over the last weekend when they used a tactic that they call the pressure cooker, which basically means they destroy a house around a civilian home around the fighters that are inside. It's a pressure cooker only in the sense that they murder you by collapsing all of the walls around you one by one. They start with anti-tank rockets that they use on buildings, and then they use this excavator. I think there's another shot of the excavator too as well. Yeah, it's a massive, and you can see it up armored all the way across. And these are used for digging out the tunnels. They're used for digging out the tunnel entrances, which we've only seen them do 1 or 2 times to comprehensively dig it out. They've pretty much stopped the tunnel operations at all. But they're used for building the fortifications. They work with the D9 bulldozers, and these are Caterpillar. These are Caterpillar excavators built in Peoria, Illinois. They are on the BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions list, of course, because this is an American company giving Israelis these kind of armored excavators that are used in house demolitions. And along this corridor, we can go to the next one tomorrow. Along this corridor, I'm going to show you this video here. This is showing you what we just saw. Now watch it again. Now that we know what those excavators look like, we can see the red triangles over the 2 Israeli soldiers, and you can see the excavator arms moving. That's a 120 millimeter mortar. That's a heavy mortar. It's called a bomb. The actual launcher is called the mortar. What's fired out of it is called a bomb. So that mortar bomb hits directly where it's supposed to. He follows it up with a second one that hits right in the exact same spot. And you can see the arms of the excavator stop working. It's unclear if there was casualties on this situation, but we're watching the rest of this video that 𝐓𝐡𝐞 released. This is a fighter saying, we're here, we're in the field. This is 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐿 brigades. We're attacking Israeli forces in the Netzarim corridor south of Gaza City. Telling it like it is. He's holding an 81 millimeter mortar. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 makes 3 types of mortars: 120 millimeters, 81 millimeters, and 82 millimeters and 61 millimeters. 120, 80, and 60 are the 3 sizes. And so these ones that are small in their hands are the 60 millimeter, and they work in teams in units of at least 2, often one who will hold the camera, and then they'll rotate out. They fire a few shots and then they leave the area because counter battery fire. The Israelis are tracking with radar, with drones, and are looking for these positions. We're watching 6 𝐓𝐡𝐞 mortar positions, 6 𝐓𝐡𝐞 mortar teams operating at targeting the same spot along the Netzarim corridor, not just firing randomly along the corridor. This is 6 units concentrated on a single target. And that comes from the surveillance, intelligence, reconnaissance, and surveillance. And you can see the fighter escape there. If we go to the next one tomorrow, we can I highlighted this because we haven't actually seen the mortar teams exit. But if you watch the way this guy exits, and if you ever saw those videos of the kids in Gaza who do parkour, he just so smoothly goes over that wall and exits. And of course, any return fire then, you might lose your mortar launcher, but watch him go over the fence here. Yoink, and he's gone. So that was just, I wanted to show you that because we haven't actually seen the way that they exit these mortar scenes. But he's showing us that they exit the scene and leave behind the mortar and then go back and get it later when it's safer. And that's what, when you read in the field reports that the fighter returned to their base safely, that's what they're talking about there. These fighters are preserving their lives. These are not martyrdom missions. And these fighters have been doing this all throughout the war. And their skills of these mortar teams were demonstrated in that first clip that I showed you. That the shot landed exactly where it was supposed to, for an area weapon that has a radius of up to 30 meters of a kill zone. So the counter battery fire is what they're trying to get out of the way from, to get out of the way from the Israeli response. If we go to number 12, this is the Rajim 114 millimeter launcher. This is the first time they've shown us the 114 millimeter artillery shell, the rocket artillery. And so he's the fighter. This is a 𝐤𝐿 Brigade's video, another one. And this fighter is attaching the fuse on the front of this weapon. He's showing us how it's put together. You can clearly see that these are brand new. These are brand new 114 millimeter rounds. He's using his multimeter here to check the wires. This is a 3 launcher, possibly because it was destroyed. And they're using, you can launch these rockets without, you can launch these systems without the tubes. They're not as accurate without the tubes, but by weighing down on what you see, the bags weighing down on them, makes the launcher stable for the moment that the shell is launched out of it, that the rocket. This is you can see the fighter here using the controller, because what he's doing here is he's setting the timer on these rockets. We've seen this multiple times where the fighters say, we saw one from 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐿 where they said at 9 p.m. tonight, we're going to launch rockets at Tel Aviv. So the Israelis know that they're coming. The Israelis watch the launch and then hit the launch site, and the fighters are long gone because they set. We'll just watch this one more time. The fighters are setting a timer on these rockets at any point in the day, going when it's safe, setting the timers. Although we took the audio out of this video, but you can hear the drone buzzing overhead in this video, as you can hear it in all of them. You heard it in Nora's news reports from any journalists on the ground. It's constant drones overhead, the Hermes drones that Hezbollah has been downing in the north. But we can see there the rocket launchers are aimed at slightly different angles so that the Iron Dome can't pick the consistent trajectory. It has to recalibrate for each rocket. So that is a way of working around the Iron Dome system. And then we're going to watch, you'll see the controller here that's coming up. He's going to show you the controller that 𝐤𝐿 has built, the controller and made many of these controllers. This is the first time we've seen this. You can see it connected to a battery there for the launch. And that device is where he's setting the time. You can see the 𝐤𝐿 Brigade's logo there. And then you saw that was in the middle of the day. This is clearly later on in the day when the rockets are launched. So it essentially gives the fighters almost like a superpower, because they can set the timer on these rockets and they can be long gone from the site where they're launched from. And carry on safely throughout the war, and those are significant developments. If we look at number 13, we're going to see 107 millimeter rocket. This is the more common rocket. This is a Chinese rocket artillery system, and Hezbollah and 𝐤𝐿 have both shown how to use this system with improvised launchers, and that has foiled the counter battery fire that's looking for the metal structure when it's tracking the fire. And so that was something that the Americans talked about in Iraq, because the Iraqis started using it in Iraq after Hezbollah used it in the 2006 war. Rather than having fixed launchers of metal that can be picked up on radar and with heat tracking, they fire off makeshift launchers from a riverbed using wooden tubes, using a staircase, using the railing of a staircase, just to have it be stable. And I'm just going to show you one more thing, because you can see on his launch, you could see that 𝐤𝐿 launcher, the controller that he's using for launches. They're putting the sticks over top because the timer is set for multiple hours from now. We can see his controller there, and after this rocket, so you can see his controller there. It says version 3 And it's a play on words. It's a play on the Arabic words for iron peace, but it's actually more of an enforcer of peace. So it's actually like iron peacemaker, or iron peace creator, or iron peace enforcer. So it's a play on the Iron Dome, and saying that these controllers are to defeat the Iron Dome because they have a timing system. You can see the multiple dials allow you to set the rockets for different times, and the number of rockets and the number of time in between them can be set on this device. And on this device, on this controller, 𝐶𝐤𝐿 has a play on words for the Iron Peacemaker, to defeat the Iron Dome. And interestingly, the Israelis yesterday, in the time between hitting that base and today, there's been more than 15 regime attacks on Israeli forces. And yesterday, the Israelis, because no Iron Dome worked during that operation that I just showed you that had 14 casualties. We saw no Iron Dome. You would have seen the Iron Dome go up in the soldiers' footage, and you don't see that. You don't see it on the Palestinian footage either. So there was none in there. They took 14 casualties. Yesterday, the IDF, nobody asked them, but they admitted that yesterday they were bragging about it. They said that the Iron Dome shot down 5 of 12 rockets that were launched from this regime system on their base. So the IDF is bragging about 5 out of 12 rockets being shot down. So they lost the engagement 7-5 and are bragging about their $1 billion Iron Dome system that the United States has helped them for a decade or more put into place. And the Palestinians are defeating that system and destroying their soldiers' concentrations using Gaza-built 114 millimeter rockets and a regime multiple launch rocket artillery system that has a controller called the Iron Peacemaker. So I just wanted to bring that screenshot of that moment so that you could see in their videos they go by these things really quickly, but if you spend way too much time watching them, you can break down these details as I do. And so I just want to show you, those are the rockets from Gaza. And let's look at number 14 here tomorrow, because Hezbollah, sort of like the big brother that they are, the day after the multiple launch rocket was shown in Gaza, Hezbollah showed us their multiple launch rocket. This is a 40 launcher Grad rocket system that is a truck mounted system. And we're watching it here for people listening. We're watching them fire 40 rockets in a plume of smoke buried in the trees. They've driven their truck into the tree line and they're firing it from the truck bed. A 40 rocket launcher at Kiryat Shimona, which is the northernmost city in northern Israel. And this is just a clue. This is a clue from Hezbollah that they have these systems that they haven't shown us these yet. These systems can reach deep into Israel, and they have many more that are much more sophisticated. We're watching rockets that cannot be, that's too many rockets to be intercepted by the Iron Dome. And here we're seeing them use it in conjunction with a second system that's a 21 rocket launcher. These rockets that they're launching are 122 millimeter Grad rockets. In the north, they just call, all these rockets Katyushas in Lebanon. The rockets like this that come out of Gaza, they call them Qassam rockets, just in the vernacular. But you can see that Hezbollah has shown us this. They've shown us it before, but this, in conjunction with the Palestinians showing their indigenously made 15 launcher, Hezbollah reminded us all that they have a 40 launcher. So you can see it there, 40 launches, and you can see if you look below, I believe you're seeing a truck, that it's a truck-mounted, truck-launched missile barrage that came from the north. There's more Hezbollah. We'll bring you next week some more of the Hezbollah attacks. I wanted to keep the focus on Gaza for this week. But there's been many attacks, if anything, more attacks from Hezbollah in the north of late than normal, which are consistent, very high number 12 to 15 every single day, qualitative attacks. There was multiple drone attacks used this week. So we'll cover that on the show next week.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit like, leave a comment. These engagements help us with the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us to get around Silicon Valley censorship as much as possible. It does make a difference. You can also support our journalism by going to electronicintifada.net and clicking on donate now. Thank you.